היי גל,
היי בוריס, מה קורה?
מה נשמע?
הכל טוב, אחי, הכל טוב.
מפציץ אותך קצת במיילים.
האמת היא, אני הייתי במעבר דירה בשבועיים האחרונים, פשוט delegated to ג'וזה, כל מה שקשור לאנסיבל,
אבל
אני עוד מתאפס על עצמי, הכל פה ארגזים. היי פוקס.
Hello.
Let's give it another minute to see if we'll reach the 10 people threshold. Okay, let's get started. Already 4 minutes past. And we are 8 people. And Julia, Boris, and Dan are not here, so I figure this would be a short meeting. Those are the more verbose people. So first of all, thank you all for joining us. I hope that the bi-weekly change didn't confuse you and you all got a notification on canceling the meeting and everything, because I edited it on the OPI lists. If anyone ran into any issue with it, or you still see it weekly, please let me know, so I'll take care of it. Okay, so I don't think that we had any real progress since the last meeting. From what I'm seeing on the webpage, basically the action items were mostly on Dan, and I don't see that he opened the MRs we talked about on the OPI lifecycle. The two topics that we talked about last time were the spec part and the Ansible part. Now let's revisit those two. We have the first part is the spec. Raul, I hope I pronounced your name right. I read your comment today. Do you want to talk about it in this forum?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think from our point of view, we are good with the PCI baseline and the lifecycle management section of the spec. page on the
Mhm.
repo. But so I'm not the subject matter expert on the secure boot, but from the internal team, we got some comments, so I forwarded that to you. And we also had
Mhm.
internal meetings to come up with our own review of the ARM firmware and security baseline section. So we had a couple of meetings, but yeah, we are still not ready to comment on it. But I'm pushing to get the data out of them. And regarding the I think the Redfish and Ansible playbooks also we are good for we are good regarding what Boris has presented, and internally also we are coming up with our own Redfish spec, so that is taking little time. So until we get there, I think we are good with good with the proposal that Boris has regarding the Ansible playbooks.
That's perfect, and I'm really glad to hear that, first of all. So if you have any comments and things to derive from your reviews on the spec, feel free to, I think, to open a PR for it and change or an issue or something like that. I think that we found through trial and error that this is the best way to get to get people's opinion.
Sure. Sure, let me do that. Let me comment on what Marvel is good with, and maybe I'll ask the subject matter experts to also comment on the specific sections. Yeah, I'll try my best to get as much comments as possible.
That would be perfect. And keep in mind that although we talked about linking it on the front page and making it very official, all of that didn't happen so far. So not a lot of pressure there. I mean, we, at least in NVIDIA, we also reviewed it, and we have a couple of notes and things that we are gathering, collecting ourselves. So, you know, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah, got it. Yeah,
And
I'll put
regarding
whatever I have. Yeah.
anyone else has anything more to add on the spec part before we continue to the Ansible part? Perfect. Okay, so on the Ansible part, I think that we had a lot of progress. First of all, there are already 51 commits on the repo. A lot thanks to Boris, and he's really pushing there, creating a lot of PRs and commenting and so on. Also have Joseph from NVIDIA that is contributing and reviewing. So thanks a lot, Jose, for that. And I'm sorry, I am horrible at pronouncing names. But there is also one more contributor that is also very, very very helpful and also very verbose. So thanks a lot for that as well. Currently, we have 16 issues there that either are a role request or enhancement to an existing role. Now, we based most of the role requests on either customer cases that I've seen at NVIDIA and things we are focusing on, or on things that appear on our official documentation that like details the Redfish flows. So I know that Intel still working on your Redfish scheme. I would love for you to try and review our documented flow, this table that I've sent here a while back on our official documentation that says exactly what are the Redfish ways to achieve certain tasks. So if you see that there are things there that doesn't converge with you, even if you don't have or you don't agree with, even if you don't have the full scheme, you can let us know and we'll try to work on it in parallel. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yeah, sure. I'll go through it. Yeah, there's a lot of progress. Yeah.
Perfect. Anyone else has anything that he wants us to focus on efforts that you are doing internally and want to share?
So Gal, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had some discussion with Boris as well, right? I mean, moving forward. And we at NVIDIA are doing a few things that are non-standard, right? I mean, are actually very specific to our cards. Like, for example,
We have a
right, I
couple
mean,
of OEM comments.
yeah, so we actually have like things like, I mean, we require to install both the BMC and the KEK, right? I mean, the Glacier, right? I mean, in two different steps, into different operations. And we are actually like moving to conversion to actually like get those things in future releases to actually like clean up a little bit of these things. How shall we proceed, right? I mean, shall we actually like handle those special cases in a different way? Shall we wait until we have something that's more standard? That's a little bit like, I think it's more of a policy discussion on API than having privately with Boris.
I agree. I'll tell you my view of things, and let's see how does it align with the rest. So yeah, we have a couple of OEM comments that are very specific to NVIDIA, and I'm sure that any other vendor will have their own. And those are exposed and documented, so it's not like we are talking about anything secret here. As you said, the Glacier root of trust, for example.
I mean, the easiest one would be moving Arshim to the BMC. I mean, right? I mean, the next step, right? I mean, to put the blue.
But this is not really true Redfish. But you're right; it is an extra step that is very.
we actually do it from. We can do it from curl. Actually, like we need to do it from curl as well, right? I mean, so we actually like have it in our steps, right? I mean, to do the next step, right? I mean, to put the OSC match, right? I mean, the BFP. Before doing that one, we need to do a step very specific to NVIDIA. That's a shame.
Yeah. Okay. So my view of things, at least, is we need to try and avoid that, at least now in OPI, all the vendor-specific sections, and make sure that those are covered by the playbook. So, for example, when the customer writes his provisioning playbook, I would expect him to know that he's working against an NVIDIA card, use the install OS role of OPI on his playbook, and add a pre-step on his playbook, not on the role, that is moving Arshim and all that. I do understand that it's not always possible. Sometimes it's hard, and we need to add a hook or something like that in the middle of the role, for something that is vendor specific. I hope to avoid it in any way that we can. But if we reach a certain role that there is just no way around it. For NVIDIA, we have to do something specific, or for ARM, we have to, or any other vendor, essentially. Then we may need to tackle it case by case. And if we see that this is something that, it's not only a specific case, but very wide, maybe we'll add some sort of vendor-specific roles or whatever inside OPI, but I would really want to avoid it.
So there are two things. So there are two questions. One might be temporary, right? I mean, we need to do these workarounds now. Moving forward, we would not need to do it, right? I mean, like in some cases. Shall we wait until we don't need to do it, or shall we get something temporary that works?
I guess it really depends, for me at least, on the case. I mean, do you have a specific case where you say, I have some vendor-specific operation, like, well, let's not talk in general. I have a very NVIDIA-specific operation that I need to do during my role, and I can't cover it as a pre-step before my role. It has to be done in the middle of it.
Yeah, so yes, I do have some cases, right? I mean, I don't know if I can comment them like openly on the things, but things like the Arshim, for example, that you mentioned before, it would be something that would disappear moving forward, but only on an LTS release, and our LTS releases are typically happening in October. So shall
Yeah,
we wait?
but the Archim part is something that can be a pre-step. I mean, before you install use the role to install BFB,
Yes,
right? With via Redfish, on the playbook, you can create a pre-step to SSH to the actual host,
perfect.
remove Archim and all that, right?
Correct. And I can do that one with curl and basically let be done with that. Can I check
Yeah,
can I check in
it
those
doesn't have to
playbooks?
be part of the core role.
Perfect. I agree on that. Can we check
So
in those sample playbooks somewhere? There is a playbooks directory in API that's specific to NVIDIA. Can we put them there?
Oh, I
Because
think that makes sense, actually, for me at least. It makes
Okay.
sense on the playbooks one to have vendor-specific playbooks if we want to have samples or examples.
and on the roles be generic, nothing that's specific on the vendors on the role side, basically. Okay.
Yeah, as much as we can, unless we have something very, very, very specific that we hit. But I can't think of such an example at the moment.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Does everyone else agree with that?
Yep, no vendor specific stuff. I agree.
Do you think it makes sense to create on the playbook directory, not on the roles, samples for like NVIDIA specific flows or
Yes, because
Intel
playbooks
specific
are
flows?
correct. Because playbooks are samples. If we just name them correctly, that this is specifically for NVIDIA Bluefield, for example, yeah, no problem.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Then I think we are
Perfect.
aligned in that part.
Good.
Okay. Anyone else have more comments, something he wants to raise? Because I think currently our focus is mostly on the Ansible part, at least my focus. I did share that we are doing some POC with Ironic, and we hope to to do some upstream contribution to it and create a blog post. But I think that will take more time than I originally thought. So this is just on our internal radar, and once it is, Ironic is open source, so we will of course open source everything and talk about it.
Is
when
it
it's
using
ready.
the same Redfish APIs or something different? Just without going into too many details.
It's using the same. Ironic is basically functioning the same, and they have this whole parent-child relationship that they added, which is nice. We only found a small funny thing that we plan to upstream, so I have no problem talking about it. The Redfish driver of Ironic is not calling reset; it's calling power on, power off, which doesn't really make sense in the case of DPUs. So we only have reset, so we needed to edit that for DPU to call reset instead.
Okay.
But yeah, the parts that we worked on are more related to like after the DPU is PXE booting and all that from Ironic. That's where we hit the challenges.
I also want to update that we currently have, since this morning, we have the automation running the Ansible inside the OPI lab via NVIDIA installed Bluefield 2 card. So I'll post here in the chat the example of the role. I'm not sure if everybody can access that. Probably they should be, at least. So that is the first kind of try running the Ansible playbook that we have. The playbook currently is updating the BMC firmware in this example, and it tries to run. It runs inside the lab itself behind the VPN, and try to talk to the Bluefield 2. So now once we have this up and running, we can try to hook it inside. Like to connect it to the pull requests and stuff like that, or to releases, and make sure that every single change we do is actually working through the NVIDIA. Once we have more cards, we'll do exactly the same with those cards as well.
That's really, really, really nice. One thing I would suggest here on the run if maybe on the end report, we can also include the firmware versions of that we ran against. That would be very nice for debugging. So sometimes things change if
Or-
like
yeah.
firmwares are not aligned and things like that.
Exactly. Part of the role, the first thing it does currently is fetching all the firmware inventory. So you'll see that as part of the process.
Okay. Perfect then. Sounds great. This is really nice. Thanks a lot, Boris.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, folks. So if no one else have anything else to add, I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks from now. Please add in Slack or just ping me directly if you have any topics or things you want to promote within OPI other than Ansible and Redfish. I think we have a lot of potential and we understood already how things should progress through code and through examples and through contributions and not just talking. So let's try to stick with that. Thanks everyone and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Gal.
Bye bye.
Thank you.